Joe Budden really sat on a mic and basically told Drake now's the time, say his name, while the internet was busy watching Drake stans turn on each other like it's a pay-per-view. And here's the part people are missing. That's not hip-hop energy, that's a funnel. A funnel that drags Drake into a legacy trap with Jay-Z on one end and a content machine on the other end that gets paid whether Drake wins, loses, or stays quiet. Because once Uncle Instigator says it out loud, it stops being a random opinion and becomes permission structure. Clip pages run it, reactors run it, fan accounts weaponize it, and then the Owl Patrol, those stream soldiers who treat streams like votes, start fighting over who's really protecting Drake, while the actual artists are sitting back watching the fan base embarrass itself in 4K. And if you think this is only about disses, you're already behind. This is about who gets to write the story of Drake's last few years, who gets to declare what GOAT even means now, and who benefits when the timeline is arguing about Jay-Z versus Drake instead of asking why every big moment in rap suddenly feels engineered. And later, when I circle back to the one detail in Joe's wording that gives away the whole play, you're going to hear this story totally different, because that line wasn't advice, it was a setup that only works if you don't notice what's happening right in front of you. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So let's set the stage clearly, because this story looks simple on the surface, and it's not. The surface story is Joe Budden, longtime pod king, loudest instigator in rap media, and a man who never met a moment he didn't want to monetize, sees rumors swirling again about a Jay-Z album, or at least Jay-Z being active, and he throws gasoline on it by telling Drake to stop playing around and go direct. That would be spicy by itself, but it gets nastier when you add the second storyline running at the same time. Drake's stans are in full cannibal mode again. Not even just attacking haters, they're attacking each other, attacking creators who cover Drake, attacking anyone who isn't 100% worship, and doing it publicly, on X, and Spaces, and quote tweets, and group chats that always mysteriously leak the second it's convenient. And that matters because Drake's biggest strength for years has been aura, not just hits, aura. The idea that he's untouchable, that he's always in control, that even when there's smoke, he's choosing the smoke. But when your loudest supporters look unstable, it bleeds back onto you. That's not fair, but it's real. Brands see it, casual fans see it, and most importantly, other artists see it. Now add Jay-Z into the mix. Jay is the worst possible matchup for anyone who wants a clean, modern scoreboard battle, because Jay doesn't need to tweet, he doesn't need to drop 5 Instagram captions, and he doesn't need to win the first 24 hours of discourse. Jay's whole thing is, I move when I want, I speak when I want, and I don't have to prove I'm a rapper to people who learned rap from trending topics. So the question isn't just, should Drake dish Jay-Z? The question is, why are certain voices trying to make this the next big rap conversation right now? And what happens to Drake's brand if he lets the content economy steer his next move? First, let's talk about what's actually visible, verifiable, and right in your face. Because a lot of people are arguing off vibes, and the vibes are being manufactured. The first piece of surface evidence is the Joe Budden clip itself, circulating everywhere, where Joe is essentially framing it like this. If Jay-Z is rumored to be in album mode, that means he's available, and Drake should take the bait, jump out there, and stop with the indirect stuff. Even if you don't love Joe, you can hear what he's doing. He's not just predicting an outcome, he's setting a dare. And dares are powerful in rap because they turn into reputation tests. But listen to how slick that framing is. Take the bait implies Drake is being tempted by someone else, like Jay-Z is dangling the hook, when in reality, the timeline has been full of people interpreting Drake lines as jabs for years, and full of people interpreting Jay lines as responses when Jay does pop out in rap. The bait language is a Jedi mind trick. It relocates agency. It makes Drake look like he's being hunted when the whole thing is really a media loop that keeps feeding itself. Second piece of surface evidence is the way fan accounts and clip pages instantly turn that Joe moment into a referendum on Drake's courage. It's not, would it be a smart move? It becomes, if Drake doesn't do it, he's scared. And I need y'all to really sit with how unserious that is. Since when did Joe Budden become the official referee of what Drake has to do for hip-hop? Since when did Clippers become the commission? Does everybody understand how crazy this actually is? And the third piece of surface evidence is the stans turning the whole thing into civil war. You can see it in the way they treat creators. The second a creator says, "I like Drake, but I don't like this move," the Owl Patrol hears, "You're against us." And then it's dog piles, accusations of being paid, accusations of being on the payroll, accusations of switching up. And then, my favorite part, they start beefing with each other over who's the real supporter. This is where that recorded X Spaces energy comes in, because clips have been circulating of Drake fan personalities arguing with other Drake fan personalities, and the entire fight is basically, "Why did you frame it like that? Why are you using my name? You could have called me. You're clout chasing." Whole time, they're literally doing it on a public stage. And then they get mad when other people react to it. You posted the play and then screamed at the crowd for reading it. And I'm not telling you this to do the "look at the weird fans" thing. I'm telling you because it directly connects to Joe's push. When the fan base is already volatile, it's easier for Uncle Instigator to steer them. He doesn't even have to lie. He just has to nudge, and the stream soldiers do the rest. They will create the pressure campaign for him. Now, before we go deeper, I want to plant an open loop for you. Pay attention to how Joe talks about timing. Not bars, not strategy, timing. Because that word tells you who this is really for, and it's not Drake. And oh, do I have more for you. Because the next layer isn't even about Joe's clip, it's about the cultural reaction behind the scenes. Who immediately boosted it, who tried to downplay it, and who got exposed trying to act like nothing's happening while the fan base is crashing out in public. And to the Owl Patrol in the comments already warming up the fingers, save the "you hate Drake" speech. If your defense of Drake requires you to attack anyone who asks a basic question, you're not defending Drake, you're defending your own parasocial fantasy. And speaking of which, there's one specific kind of reaction that always shows up right before a rollout or a narrative swing, and it popped up again here. Now let's get into the cultural evidence, the stuff that isn't just the clip itself, but the way the culture responded to it in real time, because that's where the story escalates. First cultural piece, the split reaction between rap media personalities and fan bases. You'll see certain podcast voices treat Joe's dare like it's good for hip-hop, which is code for good for engagement. Then you'll see other voices immediately warn that it's a trap because Jay-Z isn't a normal opponent. That back and forth isn't random. It's the culture revealing its incentives. The same way beef gets framed as competition while everybody involved is selling something. Subscriptions, tours, content, clout, relevance. Second cultural piece, the payroll accusation wave. Every time somebody tries to be even slightly analytical, like, hey, maybe Drake doesn't want to walk into a legacy fight where the rules aren't streams, the reaction from the stream soldiers is almost copy-paste. You're paid, you're compromised, Rock Nation got to you. And if that sounds familiar, it's because this is a standard online tactic. If you can't beat the argument, you attack the person's legitimacy. You don't address the point, you smear the motive. And here's the nuance, because I'll be fair for 2 seconds. Is it possible that some media people in hip-hop have relationships with labels, PR teams, brands, and platforms? Of course, that's real. That's the business. But the way the Owl Patrol uses it is not healthy skepticism. It's a shield. It's a way to never have to admit Drake can be wrong, or that a move can be risky, or that a matchup can be complicated. Third cultural piece, the creator wars inside the Drake ecosystem. This is the part that should worry Drake more than any Jay-Z rumor. Because when you have Drake-leaning creators and fan personalities publicly arguing about framing, about credit, about who's real, about who knows someone, it makes the whole camp look messy. And messy is contagious. Casual fans do not separate random stan account behavior from the artist's brand. They just see chaos attached to your name. And I've also noticed a very specific pattern. When a stan ecosystem starts fighting itself, the conversation stops being about music and becomes about identity. If you don't talk like us, you're not with us. Pick a side. Stop being objective. That's not hip-hop. That's a cult model. And the second it becomes a cult model, it becomes easy for outside voices like Content Joe to point that cult in a direction and watch them sprint. Now, the fourth cultural piece, because yes, we have to talk about Jay-Z's role in all of this. Jay-Z doesn't even have to speak for the culture to treat him like a symbol. To some people, Jay is the old guard. To others, Jay is the blueprint. And when a rumor pops up that Jay is active, the entire internet reacts like he's a final boss, whether that's fair or not. That's why Joe picked that framing. If Jay is rapping, that means he's available. That's video game language. That's Spawn the boss. And it's designed to make Drake look like he has to accept the quest. And if you're Drake, you're looking at this like, if I respond, I'm feeding the machine. If I don't respond, they'll call it ducking. That's the trap. Lose-lose. So now we have to hard pivot, because the real story isn't who would win in a lyrical battle. The real story is why the machine keeps trying to manufacture these moments, and who profits when the culture argues about legacy instead of leverage. Here's the pattern interrupt. Stop thinking like a fan for a second and start thinking like a business. Angle 1 is the attention economy, and it's uglier than people want to admit. In 2026, the product isn't even the album half the time. It's the conversation around the album. Podcasts, clip channels, stan accounts, and algorithm farms all eat off conflict, because conflict is the most efficient form of retention. A calm week doesn't monetize. A beef week does. So when Joe Budden, Uncle Instigator, tells Drake to go direct, he's not just giving an opinion, he's creating a content lane that benefits him regardless of outcome. If Drake responds, Joe gets weeks of breakdowns, debates, and "Is Drake back?" segments. If Drake doesn't respond, Joe gets to clown him, question his nerve, and run
the "he's scared" angle. And if Jay-Z responds in any way, one line, one stage moment, one feature, Joe gets to frame it as "I told you so." That's not commentary, that's manufacturing. And the Owl Patrol plays their part because stan culture is basically unpaid street teams mixed with online enforcement. They don't just support, they police, they mass quote tweet, they coordinate, they pressure creators, they attempt to intimidate dissent. And even when they're not organized, the behavior is predictable enough that it functions like an organization. That's why I call them stream soldiers, because their whole worldview is numbers and domination, not art and context. Angle 2 is leverage, catalog, brands, and legacy. Jay-Z isn't only an artist, he's a symbol of ownership, networks, long-term plays, and cultural authority. Drake isn't only an artist, he's a symbol of streaming-era dominance, volume, ubiquity, and modern hit-making. When you pit them against each other, you are not just debating bars, you are debating which model of greatness gets to win going forward. And that debate is valuable. It drives people to revisit catalogs. It drives think pieces. It drives playlisting. It drives re-ups on subscriptions. It drives media tours. It drives narratives that can influence negotiations behind the scenes, brand deals, partnerships, platform relationships. That's why timing matters more than lyrics to these people. If you can control timing, you can control perception. If you can control perception, you can control leverage. This is also why the paid media accusation is so poisonous, because yes, relationships exist, but the bigger truth is the entire ecosystem is financially incentivized to keep the biggest names in constant storyline motion. The machine doesn't want closure. Closure ends content. The machine wants tension without resolution. So when Joe says now is the perfect time, what he's really saying is now is the perfect time for the machine, not for Drake's career, not for Jay's legacy, for the machine. And once you see that, you start noticing how the fan wars function as free labor. The stream soldiers create the pressure campaign, the clippers create the distribution, the pods create the framing, and the artists become characters in a show they didn't fully write. Now, I want to be clear, this is not me saying there's some single mastermind controlling everything. That's not how it works. It's worse. It's a system where incentives line up so perfectly that it looks like coordination even when it's not. That's what engineered means in modern culture. People don't have to conspire when the algorithm rewards the same behavior over and over. And that brings me to the truth bomb, because the biggest reveal here isn't about Jay-Z's pen or Drake's pen. It's about why Drake is being steered toward a move that has almost no upside for him, and why the loudest people demanding it are the last people who pay the cost if it goes left. Here's the major truth bomb. Joe Budden isn't trying to set up Jay-Z or set up Drake. He's setting up the storyline where Drake can't win, because the win condition is not best rapper, it's best content. Think about it. If Drake takes the bait and goes direct at Jay-Z, the conversation will not be who had the sharper metaphors. It'll be, does Drake have the right to talk to Jay like that? Is Drake punching up or down? Why is Drake even doing this? Is Jay too old? Is Drake too sensitive? Who owns what? Who's more influential? Who's more protected? Is the culture biased? Are the blogs biased? Are the streams real? Are the fans bots? Is the media bought? That's not a rap battle. That's a culture war. And culture wars don't end. They just rotate topics. Now, flip it. If Drake ignores it, what happens? Content Joe and the stream soldiers will run the ducking angle, because that's the only angle they have that forces engagement. They'll call it fear. They'll call it weakness. They'll say Drake lost aura. They'll say the pen isn't scary. And whether that's true or not, it becomes the narrative because it's easy and it's repeatable. And if Drake does something in the middle, subs, slick lines, coded shats, the machine still wins, because now every line becomes a Rorschach test for engagement. Is this about Jay? Is this about Joe? Is this about the industry? 10 million tweets later, you've got a whole media week built off ambiguity. That's why I said earlier the word timing gives it away. Joe isn't talking like a strategist trying to help Drake. He's talking like a producer trying to schedule a season finale. He's saying, roll camera now. And the most devastating part, the Owl Patrol will swear they're protecting Drake while they push him into the exact kind of overexposed, high-risk moment that turns a superstar into a meme. Because stans don't think in long arcs, they think in dunks, they think in 24-hour wins. Meanwhile, legacy fights are long games, and Jay-Z has always played long games. So here's where the hero resolution comes in, because the hero in this story isn't even a single person, it's discipline. It's the ability to not let the internet pick your battles for you. Jay-Z, Sean Carter, first mentioned full name, has built a reputation on moving like he doesn't need the crowd to clap for every step. That doesn't mean he's perfect. It means his whole brand is scarcity and control. Drake, Aubrey Graham, first mentioned full name,
built his brand on omnipresence and dominance. Both models can win, but only one model thrives when the internet is trying to force a public dare. And you can see the difference in how each side's ecosystem behaves. The stream soldiers crash out because they're addicted to constant validation. Jay's side, whether you call it old heads, industry, legacy fans, whatever, doesn't need to flood the timeline every time somebody breathes. Scarcity is power. Chaos is not. And here's the contrast one-liner that sums the whole video up. Drake's biggest enemy right now is not Jay-Z, it's the content machine wearing Drake's face. Because the second you let Uncle Instigator schedule your moves, you're not a rapper competing, you're a character reacting. And the second you let the Owl Patrol bully the conversation, you don't look strong, you look surrounded by instability. So my advice, if you're asking me as the reluctant truth teller who's been watching this pattern repeat, is simple. Drake should not let podcast dares write his next chapter. If Drake wants to rap, rap. If Drake wants to address something, address it with purpose. But don't jump because Joe snapped his fingers. That's not hip-hop, that's puppetry. And if you're a fan, ask yourself, do you want Drake to win a moment, or do you want Drake to have a career that still looks clean 5 years from now? Because those are not always the same thing. This is only the start, too, because you can already see where the next wave is heading. If Jay-Z rumors keep circling, if Joe keeps poking, and if the Owl Patrol keeps eating itself publicly, the next big thing won't even be a diss record. It'll be a narrative stamp. Somebody is going to try to officially label Drake as either back, washed, scared, or redeemed, and they're going to try to do it off a clip, not a body of work. So keep your eyes on what happens the next time Joe brings this up, because if he escalates the language from you should to you have to, that's not him being passionate, that's him tightening the funnel. And keep your eyes on the Stan ecosystem too. If they start coordinating around one specific talking point, that's usually a sign that a narrative push is being engineered, whether it's organic or not. If you made it this far, you already know what time it is. Don't let the loudest people on the timeline convince you they're the culture. They're just the loudest. Make sure you're subscribed, because the next video I'm dropping is going to get into the nastiest part of this whole game, the way Stan enforcement and clip media quietly control which rappers get called brave, which rappers get called corny, and how one viral moment can be manufactured into history before the music even has time to breathe. And the craziest part? The evidence for it is hiding in plain sight, in the exact way these clips get framed, boosted, and repeated until everybody thinks it was their own opinion.